cooperative learning and an integrated approach. We still have about 5 minutes. I request the audience to have, if they have any questions, please come out. Mr. Shogi will be very happy to. Yes, please.
I appreciated your really excellent presentation. I'm curious, are you familiar with the 11 principles of... Are you familiar with the 11 principles of effective character education? Because you just outlined them, not in the exact order, but you just gave everyone here the prescription for what it looks like. And so the 11 principles booklet actually has the success criteria and rubrics, which would be a nice complement to the excellent information that you just shared with everybody. So thank you.
Any other question, please? Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you very much for this, Payam. There was something that afternoon you and I were discussing and talking together, and there was a very good comment that you mentioned. And I want you to a little bit elaborate on that. Who are the people who actually introduce the competitive spirit in children?
Well, I did mention that at some point you need to include parents. One of the examples is this. You know, we talk about competition. Have you ever thought, where does the spirit of competition get instilled in the individual, in these little children? Well, children are noble. They're not supposed to be competitive, but they have become. Why? The starting point of competition in children is when we begin to compare them. And parents do that most of the time. Why can't you be like your sister? Why can't you be like your brother? Why can't you be like the neighbor's son? And we are instilling this sense of and unreasonable expectations, and horrible things are happening with these children. These children can't. At some point, they just give up. It's not just competition, but a lot of other horrible things happening. Imagine these young children and all of that. So, yes, it happens. We do it. Nobody does this knowingly. They do it inadvertently. But we need to draw attention to everybody, including parents, that please let these children be. And that's and not only competition, but a lot of other things are happening in the home. So at some point, we will need to engage with parents.
Thank you. Yes, please. Mike, please.
It was very delighting to hear many speakers right from the morning. All sessions were insightful, and there was a lot of learning. But I feel if we remove the word competition, don't we think that the atmosphere of academics will become monotonous? A sort of a monotony will appear, because that urge to grow may stop, or that pace of moving forward may restrict if we remove that competition part. I would like to share an anecdote. I had a problem. I was dealing with a bunch of 200, 400 students with a very poor infrastructure. In fact, absolutely no infrastructure. Mine was with the government. Putting proposals and all this was a time-consuming process. So I thought how I can contribute within a given situation where we have a lack of infrastructure. It was a co-educational institution. Dealing with the co-education is a very sensitive issue. At certain places where we feel the moral education is indoctrination, where for moral education they, in a way, indoctrinate students, giving more emphasis to the particular religions, interpreting in a way that they lose that human element. And that's why we see the violence, we see everyday problem in the schools, even among the smaller kids. I devised a mechanism of what you said, cooperative learning. I told my teachers to just give me, out of 50 students, do you see all are dull duffers? There's none student who is good in mathematics. I took a mathematics as a case study and how I imbibed value through mathematics then. They said, yes, there are some girls, some boys who are doing well in mathematics, but majority of the students are not doing well. So this was a problem because I had to face the authorities, because results at the end, results speak. So what I did, I made teams. I created leaders. Those with good marks, I told them that this is your team. I divided into 5 groups, made them team leaders, and proportionately placed the students in an average. I found amazing results. And at the end of the day, I had a meeting with the team leaders, those students. I said, how do you feel? Sir, I progressed with leaps and bounds. I became a specialized in 10th class maths. So it shows, if we give leadership qualities to the students, if we inculcate leadership in them at a very beginning age, they cooperate with those, because with this aim that we become more perfect. So this is that what you said, cooperative learning, that works. Thank you very much.
What you just mentioned, sir, has more connotations of peer tutoring, where you get a smart student, and this is built into cooperative learning, by the way, where peer tutoring happening and all of that. You know what is a fundamental problem with competition? 2. One is that when we are competing with somebody who I'm not fit to compete with, it's unfair. So I am competing with somebody that I can never hope to become like him at all. And I'm forced to compete with him. In a classroom full of 40 children, how am I expected to compete with them? Suniti mentioned the only way that we can compete is with ourselves. That's question number 1. That's the first thing to remember. More importantly, in competition, we are only looking at end results. This fancy looking report card, oh, very good, 90%, 80%, you've done well, 50%, 60%, horrible. But how much effort has gone into getting those 50 and 60% is not being recognized here in competition. Why have we adopted this system of competition is because it's convenient for us. Okay, pit everybody against each other, see who comes first in the race, and give them a medal. And it's done, finished. I have recognized excellence. But is this the best way? Have we ever tried other ways to see that there can be better ways and we swear by competition each time? Research tells us that there are many other ways to recognize excellence, to find out who are the ones who are doing well, who are the ones who can do better, and help them along the way. There are ways that can be done. But since we are kind of into a system that we have and we don't like to change, we are going away with it. But competition is something that we really need to think about more.
Thank you. Last question. Yes, please. This is the last question because we have already completed our time. Last question followed by response. Thank you.
This is not only a question, this is something to what the gentleman right now was explaining, an experiment we did 3 years ago with the students ourselves. We had a conversation in class. It was a class of of extremities, very high achievers and like very low performers. And we talked and we discussed that, what can we do to ensure, and this was a board class, class 10 standard. So we discussed with the class and we asked them, what can we do? Because the performance was going from bad, and then because of that bad performance, the whole class was being labeled as something in which the high achievers did not like. They consulted amongst themselves and then they came up and they talked to me and they said, ma'am, what if we take the responsibility, the onus of learning on ourselves? What if we create our own groups and we have documentation of this? Then what if we create our own groups where one becomes a team leader and then there are average and below average high achievers in that group, and we take up the responsibility of each other's learnings. And then we interchange. Supposing my group is very strong in biology, but weak in maths, so can we exchange time with each other, and the maths group can teach, we can teach them biology, and the maths group can teach us, maths. And we have documentary evidence that within 3 months, this began from November, and within 3 months, we had a 16% rise in academics. And the kinds of friendships that came out of those, that endeavor, that those friendships are still there. So many of them egged each other, let's become volunteers, let's do this. So those friendships have endured over time. But despite all this, all the goodness of it, that whole group, drifted away. That because they came into such close proximity with each other at times that ultimately that proximity became a challenge. So what do we do in such situations? How do we deal with, because there is so many times unnecessary competition which arises from very close proximity. So how do we deal with that?
I did mention that cooperative learning needs to be structured. So when you have groups, these groups need to be changed after a period of time. There's so many things. I'm glad that this has come up, your example also. These are examples of cooperative learning actually working, although they are not structured. You thought that this is a good idea, you went ahead and did it. But there are things that need to be done. The whole classroom environment will have to be realigned. There are so many classroom management tools. Quiet signal. I'm sure you're familiar with quiet signal. I ask you, what do you do to quieten down a classroom, a noisy classroom? After recess, you've come in, children are all excited and they're making a lot of noise. How do we quieten a class? Many times we yell over the noise of the class to quieten them down, or we take a duster and bang it, quiet everybody, and we do that. But then if we expect children to become quiet, how can I make so much noise? So there's something wrong there. So quiet signal, I raise my hand, you raise your hand, then we signal each other, everybody quiets down. There are structures that need to be introduced. Also for discipline, also for classroom management. That's where then cooperative learning begins to work much better. So it cannot become a sporadic thing that we decide to do something. Actually, let me also caution you that this can go horribly wrong. If we don't do it well, it can actually go horribly wrong. So please be convinced that this is what you want to do. Understand it, get trained, get mastery over it, and gradually, organically introduce it. This is what I would suggest.
Thank you. That's a very good response. And in fact, I'm sure all of you must have liked it. Like all good things, our session has come to an end as far as time is concerned. And before we do that, I will request Mrs. Joshi to propose a vote of thanks to the audience, to all of the distinguished guests, and most importantly, to our two speakers.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank both the speakers for this insightful, comprehensive, very powerful and very informative sessions that we had. And with a few key points, I would like to bring this to an end. You said, Mr. Shogi, that educationists can't cut corners. We can't afford to do that. The society may do it, the students may do it, everybody else may do it, but then we can't cut corners. We have to continue with the challenging tasks that we have in hand. You also talked about methodology, and in the last answer that you gave to the question presented to you, you emphasized that once again that methodology is very, very important. We have to go in a very proper way, and we have to remember that the content should match the method. That is important, definitely. And what you beautifully brought out was the interdependence of human life can be beautifully taken up in an integrated approach in school. The way we are interdependent upon each other, similarly, the values can be taught in the same way through different subjects that can be taken up. And we go back with an idea to explore the possibilities of cooperative learning, to see how we can implement in our schools. Because as you mentioned just now, it's not going to be easy. We will have to get trained, learn, and then deliver. So this kind of conferences are going to be very useful when we are going to interact with people like you, when we are going to learn from each other and see how we can make use of these beautiful things that are going around in the world, and how to make this world a better place, touching one student at a time. Thank you very much for these beautiful presentations. And I now request Ma'am Farida Waidi to kindly honor the guests over here. Yes, and the chairs. And the chair. We first would have the honoring of Mrs. Suniti Jha. Oh, I'm so sorry. You are prepared for Mr. Shogi. And thanks to you, Mr. Shogi, for coming all the way and enlightening all of us. And thanks, Mr. Garg, for chairing the session so wonderfully. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, the audience. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. Ma'am Wahidi will now please make a few announcements, as she says she has to make. And I request the guests to kindly take their seats in the auditorium. And Mr. Garg, you would also please. Yes.
So friends, thank you very much for the wonderful day that we have all spent together. We have come to the end of the day. If you notice, we just missed one program, which was the workshop groups giving us a report, all right? And I know that each one of you in your own workshop reports have enjoyed the session very much. Do you want that reporting to happen now, or are you tired and you would like to go to your own individual groups probably and discuss things with each other? What would you like to do? Tired? All right, TK. So tomorrow morning, we will be starting the conference at 9 a.m. Okay, and we have beautiful sessions. We start in the morning. If you look at the program, you will see that your first speaker of tomorrow is Mr. Jeff Smith. And then we will have a few other speakers. I'm sorry, I don't have the program in front of me. But then tomorrow's program will finish early. We finish at 2:30. Yes, thank you. We finish at 2:30 tomorrow. We didn't have the group photograph today, but we will have our group photograph tomorrow. Photographer? भैया? अभी कर सकते हैं क्या? अभी फोटोग्राफ हो जाएगा? कल करे? कल? I don't understand. Before lunch, tomorrow. Tomorrow before lunch, okay? Tomorrow before lunch, we will have our group photograph of the conference. So I'm looking at the thing. So tomorrow we have Mr. Jeff Smith and Mrs. Sunita Aaron speaking to us. And in between, we have a very interesting presentation by the students of City Montessori School, Aliganj 1 branch. So they will be actually our animators who will be making that presentation tomorrow. And then in the afternoon, after that session, at about 10:45, we have the stakeholders, the role of stakeholders. So we have Mrs. Sunita Fatke, the principal of Vidyanchal School. I'm sorry, I may not be pronouncing your name correctly. But then Mrs. Shalini Sinha, principal of Study Hall School, will be presenting. Mrs. Nalini Sengupta, principal of Vidya Valley. And we have Mr. Ram Vilas, the principal of RSBN Montessori School from Kakori village, Lucknow, who will be making a presentation. Following that, we have a documentary from the experiences of City Montessori School with regard to one aspect of our program for character and education and moral empowerment, which is actually the Junior Youth Empowerment Program. So we have a video documentary on that, which we will show tomorrow. And then the last session is role of government and civil society in quality education, for which we have Dr. Sarvendra Vikram Bahadur Singh will be the speaker. So I'll call you. Just stand here. I'll just give you the chance. And then we will have the concluding session of the conference, where we hope to share with you all a resolution that we are drafting for this conference. And we'll all read that resolution together and welcome suggestions and ideas from some of the schools that are participating as to how we can carry this process of collective learning and exploration further ahead in different parts of India. So we have a young lady here who wants to say the CMS pledge. Can I have the mic for her so she can say the...
Good afternoon. I pledge before God, whom I love and worship, to be a worthy student of my school and abide by school, to love and respect my parents and teachers and to follow their guidance, to consider all the people of the world as my brothers and sisters, for we are all patients of one God, to work for the cause of world peace and happiness of the people, to develop my mind in sciences and art, and to let my religion guide me in my action, to devote my talent to the service of humanity, for by this service I electedly serve, to show sincerity, justworthiness, and perseverance in all that I undertake to do, to strive always for excellence and a greater height of achievement in my studies, and try to grasp 100% knowledge of all my despised subjects, to uphold the motto of Jai Jagat at all times, for truly I am a citizen of the world. Jai Jagat.